It's the truth about parenting. Something needs to be real for us. The truth is in the raw things that people don't talk about. This journey is not for the weak. Welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Today, we're talking about my journey with my PTSD and how it all came into full circle with my parenting. So, my PTSD stemmed from a car accident that happened when I was 18 years old. My friend was driving down a back road in Pennsylvania. It was very windy. We were going too fast. I do not fault for her for that because we always went fast on this road. It was literally nicknamed like the roller coaster road. And she went off the side of the road, overcorrected herself back on, and we spun right into a tree. In that car accident, I remember everything. I found a cell phone somehow. I called 911. They asked me if the car was on fire. I said, I don't think it's on fire. I see steam. I thought I saw headlights still on because there was something glowing and then steam, but I thought it was steam because I was like, I can't smell smoke. So I'm guessing this is steam. I was in and out of consciousness at this time. And I remember my friend trying to get out, but the EMTs were there. But before the EMTs came, a volunteer firefighter heard on his radio that there was a car accident and he was really close to it. So he stopped and the car was on fire and we were both passed out, unconscious inside of it. He didn't have a fire extinguisher, but another car, an Angel, came past and they did. So they put the fire out before the fire department and the EMTs got there. I was awake for most of the EMT stuff. You know, they were explaining everything happening. They had to, they broke a window out, my window out, and then they put a blanket over me. And they had to break the windshield. They had to cut the roof off of the car with the jaws of life. And then they had to cut my seat out and remove me like through the back, laying in my seat, then put me on the gurney because they weren't sure of my injuries. And thank goodness they did, because after that, I was then life flighted and I was in and out of consciousness because I remember my leg felt like it was like flying off of the side of this gurney. Like it literally felt like it was bouncing and I would pass out. So I knew there was something with my leg and, there was blood all over me, but I didn't know what that was from at the time, nor did I care because I was just in this state of, I'm awake. I'm passed out. And it was almost like I was in some kind of weird, like protective bliss when it was happening, which I will go into in my spiritual podcast. Those aspects are really strong in this story, but this is not the place for that. This is the place for parenting. So I got life flighted and I got into the hospital, found out that my femur had went up through my pelvis and hit some organs and I was internally bleeding and my neck was fractured, but only a hairline away from breaking and me being paralyzed. So thank the Lord, heavens, whatever anybody believes in, that did not happen and that they did take me out in the way that they took me out. So, of course, that's a traumatic thing, right? I almost died. For a week, I laid in the hospital before they could do any surgery on me because I was bleeding so bad internally and I was out of it. Like, I don't even really remember the first week. I was so out of it. I remember people coming and crying and me just being like, it's fine. I'm fine. Like, don't cry, because I had no clue really what was going on. I do remember in the emergency room, the ER doctor tried to put my hip back into place, but there was nothing for them to put it back into. So I just remember seeing my legs swinging over my head, and then I would pass out, and that's funny to me now because it almost seems like a comedy thing to me, but, like, yeah, they ended up finding out that whole part. The reason I wouldn't go back is because I think it's your acetabulum where your femur hits in was completely shattered. I had to have 2 hip surgeries. I didn't walk for, like, 6 months, um, and, I recovered. So, after that, my initial symptoms were all the normal stuff you think of, right? Like, seeing a car accident, I would panic and get upset. Seeing something on TV, a car accident, I would panic and get upset. People driving too fast, I would get upset. Um, Me driving for a while was like a little scary for me. Being in the car with anybody else driving was definitely scary for me. And I was definitely that person that was like, slow down, even if you were going like the speed limit. It was pretty traumatizing for me afterwards. Um, so that kind of passed, and I get into my 20s, and I won't lie to you, like 21 through like 23, 24, maybe even, I was definitely self medicating through a lot of crap. I drank almost every day, and occasionally I would have some fun with medication if I didn't drink that day and I was having anxiety. Um, about, a year later, I decided to stop drinking and altogether I took a year off and stuff started coming up. I would just be sitting there and I would have a panic attack. It was really weird. Um, I would, be out to eat and have a panic attack. I remember I would go out with my husband, everything would be cool, like, nothing stressful happened before, and all of a sudden, my heart would just start racing. So I ended up going to this place in Hollywood called Hollywood Mental Health. It was free, I didn't have health insurance at the time, so they gave out free health, services, and I was taught mindfulness meditation. And what that does for PTSD and anxiety is you start by just feeling your breath and you feel what that feels like. And then you start to do body scans. So you're getting to know how your body feels in its natural state. So before you have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, there's normally something physical that pops up. For me, it was tingling in my hands and tingling in my nose. My nose would go numb and then my face would start to go numb. So I was able to feel that and be like, okay, a panic attack is coming, and be able to do breath work to kind of make my way out of that. Shortly after that, I had a little bit of a depression. So I got put on Zoloft and they gave me Ativan for panic attacks. I didn't like the way Ativan made me feel. So they switched me to Xanax, and the Zoloft made me gain 30 pounds and I could not take it off. So, like, I mean, I was working out 7 days a week and I could not take this off. I was eating healthy and it just wasn't going anywhere. It also started to make me feel like a zombie. And my Xanax, it was like kind of like a joke with the doctors because, like, I would end up throwing them away because they expired before I would use like even half the bottle. So it's like when you're an anxious person and this is something you need, like, it's not being abused, right? Even with the past of me like self-medicating, it was truly because I did not understand what was happening in my mind. So time went on and I was working out and I decided, you know what? I'm feeling like a zombie. I'm going to go off of this medication. So I tapered myself off with the doctor and I was fine. I had my Xanax for panicky moments. I probably took on average half to a whole one, and that was like 1 milligram, like a half to a whole per month. And things were going great. I got married. Um, we traveled a little bit, just through the country, and it was awesome. And then we had kids. Um, And you all know my postpartum depression journey. If you don't, it's in season 1. I have 2 episodes about it. Um, that started coming back. And so kid 1, okay, a lot of postpartum depression and not really rage or anything like that, just pretty much depressed and not understanding and kind of suicidal and stuff like that. Um, I got pregnant with my second child and we moved across the country. We went from California to Pennsylvania. We made a pit stop in Pennsylvania before moving to Georgia because my mom was sick. She had cancer again. So I was like, well, it was COVID. I wasn't going to work anyways because I was pregnant. And I was like, why not just go and help her out? So me and my son and my husband moved into their house, put all of our stuff in storage, and just took what we could to their house. And I was there with them for 6 months. I started to have these moments of rage. My husband had to travel a lot. He was in the union in California, so he would have to fly out there for jobs a lot. He went to Hawaii for a job for a couple weeks and he was working. So I was kind of going through the pregnancy. My parents were there, but by myself because they had their own stuff that they were going through. So I was there to help my mom. I wasn't there. Like they did help with my son, but it still always felt like my responsibility. So I get these small moments of rage and I just chalked it off to hormones, right? I'm pregnant. It's hormones. Um, go down the road a little bit and we ended up moving to Georgia and my mom was here for a little bit. She left and that's when I got this new wave of, postpartum depression happening and anxiety. Well, through that, I had talked about the rage I felt. So I had a therapist at this time. I'm talking with her about everything. I would be okay. And then I'd start to feel something bubble up. And then all of a sudden, it was like, boom, like it would hit me. And I would just fly off the handle, throw things, hurt myself. Hurting myself was the biggest one. I would pull my hair. I would I had bruises, like, of fingerprints in my face from grabbing my face so hard. I remember one night I freaked out, my toddler wasn't going to bed, I had a newborn, my husband was working, I didn't have any help, and I couldn't take it, so I pushed my head against his little safety bar so hard that I actually had a bruise across my forehead, and I'm talking to my psychologist about this, and it, like, was there, and then it went away, and then it came back really strong, and she's like, "Well, Jackie, that's part of post-traumatic stress disorder, right?" And I was like, "No," and she told me and informed me that when you have PTSD, a lot of times when you get that lack of control or loss of control, your brain goes immediately into fight or flight, right? And that's when people hurt themselves or they get rage or they're having really bad anxiety attacks. They just, can't control it. And being a parent, you really can't control much with your kids, right? Especially when they're little. As they get older, they learn rules and stuff. You still can't control them. But like when they're young, you can't really control what they're going to do. Like I had a newborn and a 2-year-old at the time. So it was really tough. And I just want to put this message out there that if you have PTSD and you are a parent and you are experiencing these things, it could be from your PTSD. It doesn't mean that, you're a psychotic person and you can't handle it or you need anger management. I mean, maybe you need anger management too, but PTSD can be a lot of this issue. And for me, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It was just added onto my plate on top of everything else. So, with everything I've said, I just want to urge you that if you are a parent and you're seeing these things or you're feeling this stuff, to look back and maybe check out if that's where it's coming from. Because another thing my psychologist taught me was when you have PTSD, your brain is changed forever. So The smallest stressor can jump from the part of your brain that processes it happening past the rational thinking straight into fight or flight. So don't blame yourself. Get help because a lot of these reactions are chemical. You can't stop them. There is no slowing them down, especially if you're in a state where you're depressed, you're anxious already, you have other stressors, maybe work, maybe who knows what, a lot of stuff on your plate. Like it can bring it out and it can get ugly real fast and then it'll teeter away. And PTSD is just like this silent thing looming in the background and it loves to come out when you are at your, for lack of a better word, weakest, meaning, a dark time in your life. It's easy to just weasel its way back out. So, with all that being said, I'm sending everybody love that needs it in these times. If you have a partner that is flying off the handles, please look at it in a way of where is this coming from and try to help. I'm not talking about abusive situations. I'm talking about situations like I was in. I was abusing myself and I couldn't go on living that way, which it led to my mental breakdown. All of those things led to my mental breakdown. So I'm here to tell you that you do not have to suffer through this. There is a way out. I am proof that there is a way out. I got through it. It sucked. It was hard. It was probably the lowest I've ever been, realizing that last like section of my post traumatic stress disorder was just a heavy hitter, especially because my kids were involved and I never harmed them, but my son saw me harming myself. And it's been over a year now since that's happened, and he's fine, but it still sticks in my head. So if you're having these issues, please get help. Please don't be afraid to get help. If you're doing these things to yourself and you tell your psychologist, most likely they're just going to help you. They're not going to call CPS. If you're not harming your children and they're not in harm's way, they're not going to call CPS. Just take care of yourself. Give yourself self-care. You need self-care to get yourself through this. Anything. Self-care could be anything. It could be showering. I meditate. I wake up earlier than my kids and I have my whole morning routine I do just for me. And then my husband will give me time to do other things, a long shower, another meditation, a walk for miles and miles so I can just blow off some steam and be in nature. But find something that you can do for self-care and you can really take your mind out of this situation that is right in front of you, because parenting is a huge challenge in your life. It is beautiful, but it can bring up a lot of things that you didn't even know were buried deep down inside. Another thing is communication. Make sure you're telling somebody what is going on. Is it a psychologist? Is it your partner? Is it family? You need to communicate with people. You need to get this out there, write it down in a journal, but you need to actually tell somebody, because a lot of times once we get to this point, it's like somebody kind of has to guide us into help. I know for me, I was still stubborn. Like that stuff was happening. I was like, it'll go away. Well, I went away for a week or two, and then I came back with vengeance, with a huge mental breakdown. I'm not saying this stuff to scare you, but I am saying this stuff to urge you to get help for yourself if you are in this situation. Because from the bottom of my heart, I care about all of my listeners. And if you're listening to this, that means it's resonating with you. So please get yourself some help. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast today.
Welcome to the end of another episode of the Mama Jack Real Raw Parenting Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember, parenting is a journey filled with ups and downs, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way. The Mama Jack Podcast is here to provide you with support, guidance, and real-life stories from fellow parents who are navigating the challenges of raising children. If you have any questions, topics you'd like me to cover, or stories you'd like to share, please reach out to me. I love hearing from my listeners and incorporating your experiences into future episodes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Podpage, all under the Mama Jack, TheMamaJac. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and together we can create a supportive community of real, raw parents. Stay tuned for more episodes filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between. Until next time, keep being the amazing parent that you are.